You are listening to the Real Men Feel Show with Andy Grant. Real Men Feel encourages men to allow and express all of their emotions. Despite what you may have been taught, all emotions do serve you. Real Men Feel is committed to engaging in discussions that most men aren't having. All links mentioned in each episode are in the show notes found on the blog at realmenfeel.org. Now, let's get into this week's show. Hello, and welcome to another edition of Real Men Feel. This is your host, Andy Grant. And today, the day we are recording this episode, is September 10th, 2019. And that, if you don't know, is World Suicide Prevention Day. Now, I'm not sure how people around the world celebrate World Suicide Prevention Day, but I do a Real Men Feel show, right? Because that's the best way to roll. And a way that I love to celebrate on Real Men Feel is by having one of my favorite guests return. And that's what we're doing today. So coming back to us is Henry Johnston. He's a coach, mentor, speaker, artist, and podcaster. So welcome back to the show, Henry.
Thank you very much, brother. It's an absolute pleasure to be back in the podcast hug space that is Real Men Feel.
I like that. It is a virtual hug. Yeah, and it's a real hug for us being on it, and hopefully it's a virtual hug for anyone that listens.
Oh, absolutely. We get to foster our growing bromance, you know? It's very real.
Cool. So as I mentioned, today is World Suicide Prevention Day. So what are you doing to celebrate or to honor this day?
So I am increasing awareness and pushing for us to have some very real dialogue around us. I think the mental health awareness has reached an impasse where, yes, the awareness is everywhere and yes, it's fantastic, but we need to start having discussions and dialogues about how we move forward into that, like how we actually approach it, boots on ground, so that we know what to say when someone comes out about mental health. The people who are experiencing difficulties know how to respond, what's out there and what is at the crux of supporting people with mental health, so that we don't try and fix them, but we try and support them, and it just happens in tandem with each other. So I'm releasing a podcast show a day to raise awareness for it and to have those kind of, and you're going to be on later on in maybe tomorrow, I think.
Yeah, we're talking tomorrow.
Yeah. So we're going to be having conversations, and it's very much about two men having a conversation, so that when people listen, they're not tuning into the normal kind of guest to and fro. They're talking into two guys having a conversation, so they'll feel like they're in the same room as us.
Yeah. Reflecting on this day in the United States, September is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month.
Okay.
Something like that.
Yeah.
With all the awareness and prevention, it all kind of gets crossed. But anyway, I don't really want to make you more aware of suicide. We want to make you aware of preventing suicide. Right?
Exactly. And like how we can approach that in a really educated, progressive way.
Right. And I find the best thing that I can do as one individual, as one man, is by sharing my experience.
Yep.
Because there was a common myth when I was growing up that talking about suicide, even saying the S word, would trigger people into taking action, and that's just total bullshit.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So if you're not sure how you can prevent suicide, I would offer to you that talking about it is one way you can.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And being curious around people, I would encourage, when someone speaks out about it, not to immediately jump to "you're so courageous, well done for standing up against stigma." Like, you don't need to say that. They don't place them on a pedestal. Just get curious and ask, like, how can I help? I've got a brother they're experiencing, like, what do I have to look out for? Mm-hmm. How can I help everybody that I meet? These are the kind of questions that we need to ask, because otherwise we fall into a courage porn world where everything becomes about courage, and it devalues and just stops the conversation. It's a bit like going up to someone and say, I feel really, really angry at the moment, and they kind of touch your head and go, "Oh, that's very brave of you to tell me that." It's like, whoa, no, dude, like, I want to have a conversation about this. I want to communicate. So let's do that.
Yeah. Often people will ask me, well, what can I do? Often you don't need to do anything.
Yep.
You don't need, it's not, wow, I'm feeling really suicidal and down today. I don't know what's going on. It's not an invitation to please come fix me. Right.
Yeah.
It's just like for you as a concerned party to be courageous enough to just stand there.
Yeah.
Right. To hold the space, to listen, to hold someone's eye, to touch them on the shoulder, not need to do anything else. And just let someone admit how horrible they might be feeling in that moment.
Yeah, that's exactly it, Andy. You hold the space, you allow them to speak if they want to. And if they don't want to speak, that's fine. The most important thing in that situation is that they've reached out and you are part of their support network. Like, don't pressure them into telling you exactly what's going on, but just be the person who you're actually right. Put a hand on the shoulder, say, hey, I'm here whenever you're ready. If you ever want to, I'm here.
Great. So, but before we started the proper show recording here, you had mentioned that you're looking forward to not having to talk about suicide, and I said, "Oh, I'm not going to let you get away with that." But so we will move on. But before we do, where can people find these episodes? Is it part of your normal podcast? Is this a special event, or how are you calling it?
Yeah, so it's all going out through my podcast, which is the Inner Warrior Reframing Masculinity podcast. You find it on iTunes, you find it on Podbean, you find it on Spotify. You guys have Google Play, which is amazing, but we don't have Google Play over here. So I've also just set up the Inner Warrior Reframing Masculinity podcast Facebook page. So I'll be posting all the interview links, but then all the video content, and I will just be filling it with ways to go about it, resources to use, numbers to call. If you don't listen to the podcast, but you're interested in it, then you will at least be able to find a way to access the help that's needed. And my website, which is www.henryjohnston.org.
Excellent. And let's spell your last name.
Okay, JOHNSTONE.
Right, because that last E will be dropped by every American trying to Johnston.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. So John Stone.
Yeah,
my Scottish clan name. So there you
go. Beautiful. And I actually got the request to like the Inner Warrior on Facebook this morning.
Yes.
And I was like, how the hell did I miss this? I'm like, oh, good, you just made it. So good. I'm not behind.
I literally just made it. So
excellent. So I do encourage everyone to check out your show, connect with you on Facebook. Listen to this week's, suicide chats, and go into the back catalog, and because you have a lot of, you've turned me on to a lot of wonderful guests that you have been on your show, and then I find them, and vice versa, I believe. But
it's the beauty of community. And I just wanted to add, like the chats around suicide, they're not the kind of the heavy talking. Yes, we do get serious, but there's a fair amount of laughing, and it's about community and friendship and sharing that space with you. Yeah, we talk about things that need to be spoken about, but we're not po-faced about it all.
Beautiful. So changing topics, and why I wanted you to come back, it just happened to land today. You recently held a rather unique workshop, and I believe it was your first kind of workshop and retreat event. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct, Andy.
All right. So what was that called?
It was called Henry Johnston. It's a very unimaginative name. Henry Johnston Coaching Metal Work Retreat.
So by metal work, do you mean you all put on mullet wigs and you crank up the Metallica, or something else?
No, I mean by metal work, it's metal work art. So we're talking steel, welding, plasma cutting, angle grinding, working with steel to create something of meaning to whoever, whatever type of meaning you may be attracted to in that space, or just to have a whole lot of fun and make whatever you want. That's what it was about.
Cool. So are you some sort of metal worker and welder by trade?
No, I am. So it's always been kind of a side hobby. So I'm self-taught. I got really into it. Always loved steel. Always collecting steel. Always been fascinated by rust and big blocks of sheet. Never really knew why. Did a really short course on welding, and that was it. I was off. Once I knew how to join steel to steel, I found something which had been missing from my entire life, and that's what I offered to people on the retreat. It's like, you may not think you're creative, or you may not even think creativity will help you, but let me tell you, you are creative, and you are able to turn this into something. And also, like, there aren't many people that you'll meet who will say that they know how to weld.
You mentioned the first time you joined steel to steel, you discovered something was missing. So what was missing? What got triggered by that?
I was good at something. That's what it was. I learned a skill that not many people had that I was good at. and I taught myself to do it. That's what marked it out. I'd spent my entire life being told that I was a failure, that I was destined for prison, that I had debilitating mental health issues, I could never live a more normal life, I'd never be off medication. All these things, all these labels just stacked onto me, which, you know, I understood as like my life's just a bit rubbish and I'm always going to fail. But when I joined Steel together, that was literal evidence that I had something that was different, and I enjoyed it, and I was good at it, and it was exciting. You know, it's that thing of, it's something that my clients experience when they come to the workshop, is like, oh my God, this is so fucking, sorry, can't swear. This is
you're encouraged to swear here, my friend.
Okay. This is so fucking cool. That's what it is. It's different. It's exciting. And it opens up this whole nother world of experience. And that really is like the nub of it. I was missing something that was exciting, unique, that I was good at, that I enjoyed, that set me apart from other people. And I say that unashamedly. Like, I knew that I was kind of different, but I had nothing to represent that to me. So it really helped me on the journey to say, well, I'm a metal worker. I'm a metal worker. I know how to wield the power of the sun to melt steel. You know, that is fucking cool. And that's what my clients get. They're like, so like, I spoke through them. I said, you know, like, this is the plasma tool. They're like, okay, so this is the most dangerous tool you will ever use in your entire life. Okay, if you miss something, if you tend to hit your hand, the plasma torch will just find its nearest way to the earth clamps. It will just cut your hand off, like, plain and simple. It's a scary thing to tell people, but when people, like I was, have a little bit low self-esteem, a little bit low kind of responsibility, you feel a bit lost, when they're given a power torch, like a plasma torch like that, they have to step into like a heightened sense of responsibility. And it's easy to use. It's one of the simplest tools to use in the workshop. And it is actually quite safe. But it has that element of, if you get cocky, or if you be irresponsible, if you act like a bit of a dick, it's gonna fuck you up. And that's like, that's the, as I take people through like the tools, like that's what they're working with. It's like heightened responsibility with something that is ultra fucking cool to do.
That is that. So did someone introduce you to this at first? Did you just like stumble into it and discover it? Like, how did it come about in your life?
So I was always fascinated by steel. I did this really short course on how to weld. So once I knew how to weld, I was like, because welding, like, for anyone who doesn't know, I am not technical. Okay. You go on a welder the way it sounds. And what it does, you pull a trigger, it shoots some gas out, which protects this little steel thing. This is MIG welding, by the way. And it strikes an electrical arc, it melts the steel, this little wire comes out the end of the welding tool, it melts into steel, and then it melts all the steel around it. So you're melting steel into steel to create a bond. That's what it is. As soon as I learned how to do that, I was like, wow, this is really fucking cool. What the hell can I join together? So I did. I just joined loads and loads of crazy shit together and discovered that I really liked it. And that there was no set out destination. You know, I could make whatever I wanted and it was okay because it was really fucking cool to do. And then I went to art university, and I went to art, got classically trained in university, and it was a big pile of shit. They tried to fit me into a box. They tried to fit me into a, you know, I think there's a lot of stuff, great stuff to do with contemporary art, but I also think it's been weighed down by hyperbole. I think you could put a lemon on a box and present it as some kind of art. It's, you know, if someone wants to do that, it's not my bag. I believe in creating tangible works that create, that mean you have to get your hands dirty. You know, there's an element of danger there. There's a bit of a risk. You know, it's exciting. That's what I went to, and I got totally shut down. So I'll just share this with the audience. There's a massive 2 fingers up, because I think metalworkers really access that kind of rebellion. I don't know why, but I made I got an old Land Rover chassis. I welded on this kind of theme park ride onto it. You had a computer screen, and it went inside Kim Kardashian's ass and went into colonoscopy footage. That was my I was like, fuck you. Just fuck you. Do not tell me what box to fit in. Go inside her ass. Have a look at some poo. There we go. Thank you. I got a 2-1, so it kind of been all that bad.
So that didn't end up in the Tate Museum in London? No.
Do you know what? My tutor said this belongs in the Saatchi Gallery. I was like, okay, well that's great. I was actually having a really depressed day that day. When I graduated, I was just like not in a great place. And I was like, oh, and then I didn't do it. And I just went up to North Norfolk, where my workshop is. And I just started making. I just went and I just started making. And I haven't really stopped.
Were you creative and artistic before finding your love of steel?
Yeah, I was imaginative.
Okay.
You know, I had imagination, very creative. Like, I can't draw, Andy.
That's what we're getting at. Were you painting and drawing or anything else outside of your thoughts?
I was covering potato in paint and daubing them on pictures. And the thing about like creative people, and it sort of feeds quite a lot into dyslexia. That's why dyslexic people are so great at being creative, is that we don't have the filters of what's normal. So we do what feels right. Mm-hmm. And then with that, you get a kind of low perception of danger, not a lot of common sense, which is just this wonderful fountain of stupid, fucking crazy shit that comes out. And people see you like, why did you do that? But the dyslexic will think, well, why not? It's just like the most natural thing for me to do. I'm going to poo all over this wall and then make a poo party. So leave me alone. Which is something I did. If anyone wants to know what a poo party is, then please reach out to me privately. So, it's all coming out now, isn't it?
Yeah. So the steel work, the welding, the thrill, the creative process woke you up. How did you decide or discover that this would help other men as well?
Well, I kind of sat on it for a while because I'm really lucky to be. My parents are both still alive. I've been through a huge journey with them through addiction and homelessness, and like, just listen to my other show, you'll know. So I have a really good relationship with them, and they let me have this 1,400-year-old barn where I have my workshop, and it's in this wonderful countryside. River runs through this converted mill, deer, otters, kingfishers, all the stuff. So I go there to relax, to chill with my own symptoms of mental health, and I'm aware that it is something. And it all came about from my mental health struggles. And here's the thing, like, when I'm depressed, it is a formless, shapeless void where thoughts don't come into meaning. They don't create anything. There's nothing tangible for me because it's an absence, right? And I have to force myself to get into the workshop. Like, it is the most counterintuitive thing. I do not want to do it. Fuck off, workshop. Ugh. But when I go in, I'm just like, right, I'm going to spend 1 minute here. But what it does, because creativity is intuitive and everyone is creative, I won't listen to anyone who says they're not, is that it goes inside and it takes this depression and it channels it. Because when you are working, you are being creative, you are checked into your body and you're intuitively creating something, which literally means that your depression is coming out of you into a form. It is externalized. You have control over it, and it will lift anxiety, depression, psychosis, all of this stuff, OCD, ADHD. I have experienced a release of symptoms across the whole board through creativity. So I thought, well, and I'm not a selfish man. Any experience that I have, I want to share with people in community. Like, it comes down to my coaching and my speaking and everything that I do. So this idea percolated of like, I always have a dog there as well. So God, people love dogs. Fuck me, come and hug my dog. And it just started this thought of like, okay, so how do I offer this to everyone? And I sat on it and I thought about it. It took me about 5 years to take action on it. And then one day I thought, I've got clients. They've shown an interest. I really want to share this with them. I know that it's exciting. I know that it's new. I know that it's slightly dangerous and you have to take responsibility. All of these things feed into a positive masculine identity. So I'm just going to put it on. So I took 6 of my clients down there for 3 days to give it a test run. And it was absolutely amazing.
So what specifically did you do? You can't just like, here's a torch, everybody, go at it. You must do it.
Hey guys, yeah, right, see you later. So the first thing that I did was that I told them about the creative process. If you're doubting that you're creative, don't listen to that voice. It's the imposter syndrome. It's literally bullshit. It's going to limit you. I'm going to take you through each and every tool in the process that you're going to use them. So I asked them to create, first off, a silhouette. just a very simple silhouette. They draw the silhouette out on the steel, they plasma cut it, they take it to the bench, they angle grind it, which is where they smooth it down, and then they weld something onto it. So I took them through each of them. I explained, and I purposefully explained the danger of each of the one, because that's what makes it exciting. You know, that's the risk, that's the responsibility. This is the elevated, you know, experience. So the first day, and it was about building community as well, you know, just guys, never met each other before, hand holding that space of communication. I cooked for them as well. I cooked every meal for them, encouraged speaking, chill out. I've got a couple of guns there, a couple of air rifles. I don't know what it is about guys, but when they're taking a break and they shoot things, it's just love it. Do you know what I mean? It's just a real bonding experience. So there was options just to chill out, take time out. But then, so the first day was chilling out, community, sharing if you want to, being men. I'm going to show you how it works. I'm going to take you through the process. Then I'm going to grant you the autonomy to look after yourself and do it. Like, I was around, but I wasn't like, I don't know if you're the same, when someone's looking over your shoulder and checking you, like, that just drives me mad and just, oh, it restricts all the feel good stuff. So I didn't do that. I said, I'm going to be around. I walked around, you know, I fussed my dog, I went in. Do you need any help? And actually, what's great is using the art therapist within me is I can see where they are at with the, you know, a guy was making a dragon. Now, this guy's really introverted, you know, doesn't speak a lot, kind of a bit unsure, massive ADHD problems, but he made a dragon. And he took extra care over, like, there's just kind of like, dragons have like a mane, right? And it's really tricky to angle grind manes because they're small and they reverberate, but he took extra care over making them perfect. So then I was able to talk to him about that. What led you to make this? I noticed that you did the mane really intricately. So I inquire into their experience and get them to view what they did subjectively, which just adds to the experience, because to them, they're just making something that looks cool, doing things that feel cool. And oh my God, it's so cool. I come in and I just inform them a little bit more to why, because no one makes things by accident. Once we have that, once we tune into the ebb and flow, we're already on the journey to make something that is very, very specific to where we are. And it was just so nice to see people enjoying this world that I created for myself from, as you know, from our episode, from the utter shit tip of my life, to then share it with these guys who hadn't done it before, so that they could just discover something about themselves born out of what is like quite a masculine process of the danger, of the risk, of steel. You know, steel is the most unyielding material on the planet, but yet with the right skills, you can make it yield to you. I'm going off on one, aren't I? I'm just like speaking like
that's why you're here, my friend.
Very passionate about this.
Yeah, didn't invite you on to be silent. But so did everyone stay there? Was this truly around the clock, or did they go home at night, or no?
I think in the future, as it grows, I'll get people to stay somewhere, you know, outside of the mill and run within the mill. There'll be myself, a couple of other facilitators, a cook. This time around, they all stayed in the drawback of where I do it is that there's lots of double beds, and I really didn't feel comfortable saying, hey, guys, first time you met each other, so you're sharing beds. See you later. So they all stayed with me, and I didn't put like a time of like, you have to get up at 8 o'clock for morning prayers and naked wrestling. Okay, it was just, you know, this is your time. You've paid for this. Make use of it what you will. And some of the guys, one of the guys has thyroid problems, so he gets really, really tired really, really easily. And it made sense for him just to chill the fuck out, you know, just to enjoy the space. Other guys slept in, other guys didn't. So it was all it's like something that I've learned from other people who run retreats is allow your clients the autonomy to do what they want to do. Like, setting up an itinerary is great as a contingency plan, but really, like, they're there to explore themselves and to enjoy themselves. So it was all in-house. Cooking for them, something that I did that I really liked was one of the guys is a chef, and he's quite kind of shy. So I said, hey, you know, you're going to cook for us, and you're going to show us all how to cook. A lot of these guys, they don't have basic cooking experience. So it was this really great kind of community feel to sit. It was like a cooking show. There was one guy on the island going, "This is how you cut carrots." We were like, "Okay, we're going to give go. My carrots are a bit shit. Oh dear." But, all goes into a big pot at the end. And then in the evening, if they wanted, I got my Xbox up there. If they wanted to go play a game, they could. If they wanted to watch a movie, they could. Like, it was open, because that's who I am. I am open, and I don't try and control anyone. And it just feeds into the ethos, again, of creativity and just allowing things to be and following where they go.
Awesome. And how did it go? What sort of results did guys, check in with by the end of that weekend?
A lower amount of social anxiety. That was a big one, which is pretty impressive considering these guys, they come from cities. They feel isolated and like everyone's in cliques. They don't communicate a lot. They feel overwhelmed in social situations, but then they're presented with 5 other men. The only common denominator is me as their coach. They don't know anyone. They could very easily feel overwhelmed, but they didn't. They embraced it, and they were able to practice communication. And it's interesting. I could see some of the techniques that I've taught them. Like, there's this wonderful method, because when people go into social situations, it's very easy to feel super, super overwhelmed. The mind rushes. So I teach the beat method, which is just wait 2 beats, like 1, 2, before you respond. And I was seeing them doing that, and I was like, oh, I have to fight myself and going, I see what you're doing, the beat method, nice. So lower self-anxiety, learning to enjoy a creative process. That was another thing. Feeling empowered, feeling a greater sense of responsibility, and this overarching sense that when they go back to their normal lives, they've got a new perspective. It's like I just feel a little bit different. And it's also this case of, well, I've got my driving test coming up, but I did your workshop, didn't I? It's like, yeah, you certainly did. You did the shit out of the workshop. And I have a very personal connection with my clients. I am me. As you see me now, I am that person with my clients. I am that person with my family. It's all the same. And I think that's really important in building and fostering close relationships. Yeah. And they go back and they're like, well, I can do that. I can wield the power of the sun. Like, you so most certainly fucking can. And you did it really, really well. And they just, and it's this skill that in some ways, I guess they always had, but they never had to use.
It sounds like a very alchemical process. The way you're pulling in the sun and transforming steel, but you have said this creative process is transforming your own, and the depression, the mood, the shit you feel is coming out while you transform these elements.
Yeah, it is. And it's, what? I can only describe it from my own experience, but I think there's a lot more to be said, because it is I do run a forge. The forge was out of action, which is the forge is when you have billows going through hot coals and you heat up steel and you create kind of swords and axes and stuff like that, or pokers, as I make a lot of pokers and keyrings. The forge was out of action, but so the forge being a more traditional way of metalworking, as in that feeds back to hundreds, perhaps 1,000 years ago, when men were using exactly the same techniques by and large to create weapons, shoe horses, all this stuff. So it speaks to our masculine ancestry. Now, the technology involved in what I do is part of that. So I believe that it does reach back to that. It stirs us on some level, because it has, what is it? It has depth. It has meaning. It's something traditional that men who worked in what we may perceive a more simpler time did. So there's a simplicity to that, and it just feeds into this wonderful, strong, responsible, honorable, masculine identity, which at its core is very simple, and it doesn't need to be overlooked. But what the guys are doing is they're doing hard work. It's hands-on. It's weird. Like, I was the only one with like metal work all over my face, so I don't know what that says about my working ethic, but they get dirty hands, they get little cuts, they get bruised. It's not violent, but you get burnt, you get the chips and the whatever from working with the material. And I think that as well, it sort of gives them this resilience, and really does speak to this healthy masculine identity of stepping into a situation, taking responsibility for yourself, taking assured action. Because it's something like I said to them, like the angle grinder is most versatile tool anyone will ever have. You may well have seen one. You hold it, people can't see what I'm saying. It's a spinning abrasive disc, which abrasively cuts through steel. And I said to them, treat this with respect, because if you push it, it will jump. And then you'll lose your confidence, you'll lose your rapport with it. And the next time you go back to it, it won't be as effective. So they have to learn this respect for what they're doing. And again, it feeds into this really healthy, I mean, as I'm talking about it, are you feeling it? That kind of, that presence of a man who is in control and assured in his presence, because what he's doing requires those skills. And it's what men have been doing for centuries, working with steel, with fire to create something.
Yeah, it sounds and feels very primal, which is why.
Yeah, that's it. It is.
It's cutting away the bullshit and the lessons, the labels of today. And like this weekend is kind of like for a man going back and coming out of the Stone Age and moving into the Iron Age and just.
Yeah, exactly. It is so simple, but it speaks to us as men. I do work primarily with young men, and it's, and when we enter slightly into, in the feminist circles, it's about progressing the feminine. But when you speak to men, it's about preserving masculinity. I don't hear a lot of people saying that it's about progressing it. I do think that's a conversation to be had, but by and large, it's about preserving that primal part of ourselves, which we feel is useless in the autonomous world that we live in. We feel as if this primal part of us is slightly aggressive, and I talk about aggression really, because metalwork, I mean, my God, it's fucking aggressive work. You're cutting through steel, for Christ's sake. There are sparks, there are flames, there is noise. It's not a quiet process. So there is that kind of aggression, but it's controllable, it's tempered, it means something, it turns into something. And it preserves that center of masculinity, which I think a lot of men yearn to connect to, but just don't know how to.
Yeah. I think again, I want to speak for myself. I certainly times have had a very off-centered sense of what masculinity is, and think this primal process, this creative process, which creativity does not get a lot of mention as part of being masculine, but it is.
Yeah.
Right? And it just grounds you in these primal substances and activities, and wakes up the primeval warrior within, and in a safe, supported place to explore that in a time and age when most people aren't.
Yeah, and I know that you come from a very spiritual background, and you're a very developed man in that respect. So how do you understand the importance of accessing that primal part of ourselves from like a spiritual angle?
Oh, again, tremendously. Like it's detrimental to us to not be in tune with any aspect of us. And again, this is some of the oldest, this is an ancient aspect of you that you're wakening up and combining it. What I love is that you're combining it with this, how you said, the hyper responsibility.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of, not just men, a lot of humans fear responsibility.
Yeah.
But you combine this hyper responsibility because it's dangerous and there's adventure and there's risk and there's creation. Like, I want to come.
You're more than welcome to. And it's just really exciting. And these guys, they never knew that they could act. And a lot of what I do with my clients is helping them to discover their masculinity, recognize it, and develop their identity. So, aggression is a great one. We're told to suppress regression, and it's not healthy and it's not good. But men are naturally aggressive. It's just in our DNA. It's how, like, aggression, uneducated, unlearned, untouched, can turn into violence and rage. That's the opposite. But aggression is kind of this, it's purposeful, it's determination, it's resilience. It takes resilience to be in a metal workshop, be sprayed by sparks and carry on going. A lot of people go, hey man, you're covered in sparks, why don't you step away? It's like, no, I'm doing this. And everybody does that. This is not an exception. Everybody steps into the fire and they just become centered. They are in it. They are in the the presence and the fire and the heat and the flames and all that. And, you know, and they get hit by a bit of molten steel and they're like, oh, what's that? You know, it's like fucking hell, like you're a badass. You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
Yeah, so something on, you know, Friday afternoon, it might have been like, oh no, and now it's like, yeah, bring it on, and I'm not smart enough, and
that bid wasn't big enough, Henry. Yeah. Like fucking fair play.
Awesome. So I can already sense the answer, but do you plan more of these?
Yeah. So so what I'm doing, which is a little bit different, is the guys that have come on, I'm offering them a chance to come back and take on the role as mentor. So it adds to their experience. Yeah, they've learned how to do it in the workshop. They've experienced a lesser amount of social anxiety. They've experienced lessening of depressive symptoms. You know, their ADHD has calmed down, their OCD. The sense of self is more centered. They're operating on a highly responsible, intuitive level. They've got a load of self-governance. That's great. But what's even better is that they come back and they help other people through that. That's the community. That's the sustainable action. Because, you know, one-off events are great, but what irks me is the lack of sustainable implementation afterwards. Mm-hmm. This is me buying into that. It's like, come back, show these guys who you are, engage, you know, beyond sort of my level of like, if you were. So yeah, and every single one I've said to, they're like, yeah. And the guy who's a chef, I said, you know, would you come back and be our chef? He was like, yeah, of course. That's amazing, great. So I've got a chef, got 2 mentors. You know, I'm talking to a guy. I've got 2 friends. One of them who builds Land Rovers, amazing, oldest friend, magnificent beard, very creative. In fact, he's the guy who I get into the workshop. Like, I made this. My favorite piece of work was a kind of a hovering steel cube that kind of spun, and it was amazing, but it got vandalized very sadly. But this guy, I got him in and I said, Jim, I can make, but I'm not great with straight lines. Can you help me make straight lines? He was like, yeah, of course. So it was that collaborative thing. Like, I brought in my raw creativity and whatever, and he helped me build the straight lines and the structural elements of it. So I want to get him on, not only so that he can instruct people how to make things structurally sound, but teach people how they can work with cars as well. There's another guy who is called Andy Elwood, and I'm actually interviewing him tomorrow. He does mental health work using Land Rovers as a center point. So it's like this traditionally manly skill, you know, that they can engage with and take part in, and it's hands-on, and they get oily hands and they can learn something. And if it fits, then absolutely they can go with it. I've just started training in Krav Maga. And I've got a really good friend of mine, Ollie Cowlishaw, who's a Muay Thai fighter, but also incredibly spiritual. So we want to run self-defense classes so that these boys know the principles of self-defense, that it's all about negotiating yourself out of there first and foremost. But if it comes to it, you will know how to protect yourself. Again, it's accessing that really healthy protector, you know, the want to be able to stand stalwart in the face of adversity and protect yourself or others. I want to do sailing because there's sea nearby. So I want to take people out sailing. I love sailing. And sailing can be really fucking intense. But again, if you're in a boat with someone that you don't know and you have to sail somewhere, you're going to learn how to work together, and you're going to have a lot of fun as well. And there's just all these really exciting. I want to get a shaman in so we could do some shamanic work. I've got all my singing bowls here. I'm just gonna do something with my amazing singing bowls. Do singing bowl meditation, baths, and all kinds of, like, I got this from Nepal, but listen to this. Like, how amazing is that? Oh, brings you back to the Himalayas. Yes, and yes, as I said, include spiritual aspects. You know, build it into something that can grow, you know, and invites community on the basis that whoever goes through it can come back again, so that the learner becomes the teacher. And again, like, that's if we're looking at sort of men in a totemic way or a mythopoetic way, it's making that transition from, like, the prince to the king to the healer, you know, I'm not entirely fully on with all the totemic ones. I always forget, but the transition from boy to prince, from prince to king, it follows that. And that's something that men, we just love it. You know, we absolutely love anything to do with the king or transitioning. And do you know what? It's taking responsibility again. And something else that works. Now, I don't know how this fits in. This is part of like the mystical process of creativity. But men, I find, respond so well to sacrifice. If they have to make a sacrifice, they are more than likely to take it on board. There is something about, it's this honor of letting go something for the greater good. Now, I know that it incorporates itself into the metalwork, and I don't know what it is that they're sacrificing, but it's there because it has such a raw emotional power. And it may well be that they're sacrificing the want to run away. You know, the want to run away into safety of old behavior. Maybe they're sacrificing that, and that's why it has so much power. But it's very much, you know, sacrifice, responsibility, and fun and adventure, a boy's adventure, all of this wrapped up, and it just works.
So in your grandest vision, like, you know, 2 to 3 years from now, what is there a workshop every weekend? Is it a quarterly thing? Is it, 6 weeks long? You know, what's
Grand vision is the week-long workshops. We have about 15 people, and I want to keep it small enough, but we have the Land Rover guy, we have shaman, we have sound boss, we have chef, we have self-defense. So we've got 4 or 5 things going on. So these 15 people, they rotate through. So maybe we move it to 30 people, but each day everyone's going through a certain aspect of it. At the end of each day, we have a big fuck off fire where we sit down and we share, and then we train people to run these events elsewhere. So they all center around, and I would make sure that if there's a coach running it, then they are trained properly, because you're dealing with people's spaces, their vulnerabilities. You've got to do this appropriately. You have to have a high level of emotional awareness. So I set up a training program so I could train these people. I could give them the seal of approval to know that they can go, they can run these communities all over England. And it would be a community of guys brought together through this primal love of doing something exciting that's slightly dangerous, but is filled with respect, so that men have a place to go where they can absolutely be men.
Man, that's a beautiful and missing component.
I'd love it. That would give my life, I'd be so, I think a lot of coaches come into this business with a scarcity mindset. And I've certainly experienced myself where we're kind of told all you need is clients. And you're like, but where are the clients? Like, and there's this kind of thing of like, when a client comes along, I must hold on to them. I can't allow any other coach the opportunity to have what I have. So I'm going to hold on. But what this does is it constricts community. And that's what we need, like not just as men, but as human beings. And it's been in my own journey myself. And I've seen how me holding on to gifts that I've had has had a detrimental effect on how I connect with people and how I'm able to connect with people and the kind of offering. So I made a choice. It was like, whatever I partake in now, I want to make sure that my circle benefit and they get it, because then we will grow from each other, and then we will be able to create a community. We actually mean something. And it's not just, of course, I need to earn some money, or I'd like to earn some money, because money's an enabler. The more money I get, do you know what? I would love to open up a sanctuary for old dogs that no one loves anymore. Me and my partner have always had that dream where we could just take in the old dogs no one loves. They're pissing themselves constantly. We could hire some people who are just going to love them and let them see their last days out. If someone was to pay me £10,000 like every month to run these, some of that would go into that dream. I don't want to sit on a pile of money and think, oh great, I want my life will not have meaning unless I've involved other people within it. Mm-hmm. That's what, when I'm in my darkest moments and I'm facing mortality and the terror of death consumes me, the one thing that brings me out is that the possibility that I will be able to help someone that I love. And I've told you that I love you. Jesus, you know, I tell everyone that I love them. If they mean something to me, then I want them to be part of this journey, and I welcome them in with open arms, because that's what it's all about.
Yeah. Yeah. And it really is. And, you know, I was in a very dark place just 3 months ago, you know, and service brought me out of it.
Yeah.
And not at time. Like there's time, you know, tell me if feels true for you. Like everything sucks. Fuck you. I'm rejecting all your help. Yeah, I know helping you will help me, but fuck you. I'm not ready to do that. But then when I am, like, hey, how can I help you? And wow, I feel better. You know, but there's still a time, even knowing what's good for you, you just refuse to do it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in my experience with that, there's a fair bit of resentment that comes with that. You know, it's like, well, why now? I'm like, fuck off. Like, don't you understand? Don't try and fix me. You're going to try and fix me, even though they're not going to try and fix me. But I am cultivating a space in my head where they are rejecting me, so that therefore I don't have to take action, you know, to let them know how I feel. That's what I'm doing when I'm situated. Like, no one cares about me. Like, I'm happy being lonely, but yeah, I'm just cultivating that area where I can say, well, fuck off. Yeah. You know, but it's kind of like these kind of conversations around the reality of depression need to be had, because people, well, I was just recording a show before, and it's like, you know, you may well get on the phone with someone and they've reached in to your space. You don't have to talk to them. You can end the conversation, which I have done on many occasions, because I just didn't want to talk to them. You know, I went on a massive rant there. Do you know when you go on a rant and you don't remember what you said or if it makes sense?
Just trust.
Okay, I trust. Yes, I can trust.
Right? Just like, imagine it was steel, right? You just, wherever it takes you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like, absolutely. Like steel, like I love steel. It is, and it gains a personality. I wrote an essay way back in my coaching training, and it was about building rapport. It's like building rapport with steel is like building rapport with anybody else. You know, you've got to listen to it. You've got to be aware of how it reacts, how it sounds, how it feels, how it's reverberating through your body. It is a present moment awareness that the more you tune into the process, the more you can, like, some of the stuff I've created that have come from this really boring sheet steel just amazes me. I'm like, how can I turn something like from that into something so fucking elegant and beautiful as that? That's the transformation. And just by proxy, we are taken along that transformation too.
Cool. And anyone watching this episode on YouTube or on Facebook, I'll be putting in some of the images that Henry's created and from the workshop. And if you're listening to the podcast, just visit realmenfeel.org. I will have all the lots of photos and links to more photos if they exist. I'm sure they do, in the blog post about this episode. But just so
amazing. I don't actually have a website, which I really should do, but that doesn't matter, because I create an event which is real, and if you want to experience it, you just come to the event and go, fuck me, this was good. I got burnt, I got cut, and you know what? It feels fantastic.
You know, a lot of people talk about the shower is their meditative, insightful place, and all the great ideas. So it's kind of the metal shop, kind of your version of the shower, where everything just kind of flows better for you.
Because you let go. Like, something I always say to the guys is like, let go of your need to control the outcome, right? And that's what they do. When the mind is allowed to just free, like it's the flow, right? It's being in the flow, which is the single most blissful experience. There's something about Norfolk that when you're in the flow of the creativity, you've got the steel, you've got the fire, you've got a dog, you've got a fresh flowing river running nearby. You just tune into something that you simply cannot get in a city, and then you're off. And, you know, it's so interesting because the river runs through the house. There's a lot of, you know, I'm sure you totally get it. There's a lot of activity, you know, bit of the old spiritual activity that goes on. My workshop is no exception. You know, there are times when I'm working and I just have to look up and go, do you know what? You're right. This is your space now. I'm going to go to bed. It is 9 o'clock in the evening, so I'm going to let you have your space. You know, it could well be a barn owl just flying around, but there is tangible sense of presence is there. And whoever sleeps on the top room, which is directly above the river, either just has the most insane dreams. They just go, I can't remember what I dreamt about, but my God, it was amazing. It was like this, like there's the transformation going on with steel, which is unspoken, that we don't have control over. And then there's the transformational journey that the water takes us through, because the water is it's the path of least resistance. It just takes us. It's taking us to a destination. We're not in control of it. The more we resist it, the less we get done. The less we resist, the more we go.
True. And I find the value and why a sacrifice is part of so many ancient rituals, and you're even seeing it work in modern rituals and processes. It's your willingness to let go of something, right? Be it a habit or a thought or a physical object. For anyone to truly grow and transform, you've got to be willing to give something up, right? And so sometimes it's symbolic, and other times it's truly an identity, an aspect of yourself, or a distorted aspect of yourself.
Yeah. And that can be something that can be brought to the retreat. If I'm ready for this, this personality trait is of no use to me anymore. And I would get the client, the individual, to state that, state the intention at the beginning of the retreat of what you want to get out of it, or something that you want to confront. Stating that intention will allow it to manifest. That's, simple process of manifestation. It's and that kind of thing, it's just so powerful. It's I want to learn how to be less anxious. Okay, you've taken responsibility for it. There's a sacrifice there. Let's get you into the workshop so you can experience the creative flow. And then, and it's so, because we talk about all these elements and they just come together. We don't actually have to do anything to make it happen. It just happens. And that's the gift of it. There's no program around it. There's no model to fit into. There's no specific technique to kickstart it. When you come, as soon as you come with that intention, it will happen. And you don't have to do a fucking thing to try and make it happen. Awesome. It just will. It will just be.
So if you don't have a website, how can people get in touch with you, learn more, make sure they know about an upcoming workshop? What's the way to deal with you, Henry?
To deal with me? Well, so just head over to my website, www.henryjohnson.org, and it's got a metalwork retreat section in there, along with loads of other stuff. And that's where I update pictures from my last retreat. It will be added to stuff that I've made, and then I'm aiming to run the next retreat in February. So I'm getting a new puppy in October, so I've got to look after puppy first.
Okay, got to have the priorities. Cool.
Yeah, man, absolutely. But it will be running in February, and if you've listened to it, you're interested. And I'm talking to this is more direct to the parents. If you have a son who you is special, and he's got this ability to be responsible, but he just feels a bit lost, maybe a bit aimless, he is great for the retreat. He is absolutely perfect. This will help him step into responsibility, know what it is to face adversity, remain stalwart in a very challenging situation, and he'll learn more about the stuff which he never knew he had.
Cool. And you can also find your podcast, The Inner Warrior, on all podcast platforms.
Yeah, it's The Inner Warrior Reframing Masculinity podcast. It's across everything. It's just not on Google Play because Britain is very far behind. God damn it.
All right. Get some Google execs at your workshop.
Well, there we go. And there's a Facebook page that I have just set up for the podcast. So I'll be posting all the interviews there in the video form, blocking it filled with resources for you guys to come. So, I always appreciate likes. It's just started. Please just pop by. It's just there to be of service and value to you.
Awesome. Yeah. So we'll have links in the show notes at realmanfeel.org to everything that Henry's up to, even the things he's creating this very day. And I want to be conscious of time because I know you're kind of doing a marathon of shows, and it is later in the UK right now.
You're all right. My next priority is to cook my partner dinner. She's just finished a 12-hour shift at a mental health ward. So I've got to make her some yummy, tasty din-dins.
Good. And
I'm okay. I'm okay for the while. Yeah.
All right, cool. I want to wrap this up, let you save your throat.
It's been a long day.
Yeah. But thank you for coming back. Thank you for all the work that you're doing. Thank you for everything you're doing today at future workshops. I definitely want you to talk about this, because you've got a large and growing men's group on Facebook.
Yes.
Where you just, you're great at asking powerful questions and getting community to be active. So tell me about that.
So Men Helping Men, the journey of self-growth, I'm a co-founder of it. We are a group. We're over 1,200 guys at the moment. And I always say, when I welcome people into the group, we're not our roles in society. We're not the jobs that we have. We're not our lifestyle. We always will be men helping men. So all the guys there, they show up as men, ask for advice, share experiences. We have a lot of guys who are, lurkers, for want of a better term, and that's cool too. Like, you can come along and just see what's happening and step forward if you want to. Like, there's no pressure to be a certain way. We accept you as you are and how you are. We don't tell you who you should be. The term of masculinity we always discuss, but there's no right or wrong way to go about it. We're inclusive, not exclusive, and you're our brother, and we would welcome you in as brother. We will walk alongside you, and I go in, like, I'm an admin there, co-founder, but I regularly go in with problems that I'm experiencing. I certainly don't place myself as this point of authority, which is without, I regularly, if I'm feeling like Men Helping Men is part of my support network. When I'm feeling depressed, I say, hey guys, feeling really shit. There's nothing you can do, but I just needed to let you know. And it has saved me, it has saved lives as well. And it's just there as a resource and a community for you.
Beautiful. I'll ask you one more thing.
Sure thing.
You have a chance to kind of put something, final thought together. But is there one thing that you wish more men knew?
No one has the power to tell you who you are or who you are destined to be. No one. Only you have that responsibility and power.
Awesome. Whew.
This has been good, man. I feel buzzed.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. So thanks again, Henry. Thanks for listening. Wherever you are finding Real Men Feel, please subscribe, give a like, give a share, give a comment, give us some feedback. Let more men in your life know about this show, that there are men pounding steel in the UK. There are men feeling all around the world, right? You don't have to be, you don't have to deny your feelings. You don't have to wonder if you're freaking not a man for whatever's going on in your life, your inner life, your external life, whatever it is. Guess what? You call yourself a man, you're manly. That's how it goes. Cool. So thanks again. And until next time, everybody, be good to yourself. Thank you for listening to Real Men Feel. Reach out to us at realmenfeel@gmail.com. Learn more about Andy Grant at theandygrant.com. Until next time, visit realmenfeel.org or the Real Men Feel Facebook group and share what you thought of this episode. Please give this podcast a review on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you are discovering Real Men Feel.